A regime that spent years buying time is now running out of it. That is the cleanest way to understand what is happening to Iran. For years, the Islamic Republic believed it had found the perfect formula. Keep the talks alive, but never finish them. Expand enrichment, but never quite cross the last public line. Bury the facilities deeper. Build the proxies wider. Use diplomacy not to settle the conflict, but to keep the final cost postponed. That formula depended on one assumption: the United States and its allies would always prefer one more round of negotiations to the threshold of force. That assumption has now failed. And once it failed, everything built on top of it started collapsing very quickly. The first thing to understand is that the diplomatic breakdown mattered more than the military action that followed. The strikes were a consequence. The real break came earlier, when Washington stopped seeing the talks as a pathway to resolution and started seeing them as part of Iran's strategy of delay. According to the U.S. side, America offered Iran a simple trade: no enrichment inside Iran, but externally supplied enriched uranium for 10 years, so civilian nuclear energy could continue. The core logic was obvious: civilian energy without bomb making capacity. Iran rejected it. But the deeper problem was not only the rejection. It was the American conclusion that Tehran was not bargaining toward a destination at all. It was dragging the process out one more time. Once Washington decided the room itself had become part of the threat, the meaning of the conflict changed. That is why the military phase was not improvised. It was prepared. The campaign was framed as a long-built operation designed to do more than punish. It was designed to degrade the structure of Iranian power. And when you look at what followed, that is exactly what it did. Senior commanders removed. Intelligence figures removed. Naval and missile leaders removed. Layer after layer of the security system cut open. And above all of it, the removal of the supreme leader from power. That one fact changed the political meaning of everything. Because once the top arbitrator in a regime like Iran is gone, the state stops functioning as a single vertical command and starts functioning as a wounded system full of competing calculations. Who speaks now? Who negotiates now? Who succeeds now? Who can concede? And who can survive conceding? That is why this is not just a story about destroyed targets. It is a story about a broken political center. And broken political centers are dangerous. That is where the reports of internal fracture matter: threatened defections, panic, flight, public performances of resilience paired with clear private signs of instability. That is the pattern of a regime trying to keep its image intact while its internal confidence is being shaken. Iran is not simply under external pressure, it is under internal reinterpretation. People inside the system are no longer asking only how to defeat the enemy. They are asking what future is left to save. That is a far more destabilizing question, and it explains why the regime now looks contradictory. Quiet outreach through mediators, public denial of outreach, signals of interest in talks, simultaneous claims of absolute strength. That contradiction is not random. It is the behavior of a state trying to negotiate without admitting to itself that it is negotiating from weakness. Now place that alongside the ceasefire. The ceasefire exists, but the structure underneath it is still unresolved. Washington wants dismantlement, surrender of highly enriched uranium, and a transformed Iranian military posture. Iran still wants recognition, sanctions relief, compensation, and leverage. These are not just different negotiating positions. They are different answers to the question of what Iran is supposed to become after this war. That is why the gap is so hard to close, because the dispute is no longer only technical. It is existential. The old Iranian model is gone. Enrich, delay, expand, deter, and always assume the final line will not be crossed by the other side. That model is over. What comes after it is still unclear. And that is why Hormuz matters so much. Now, Hormuz is Iran's last major card, not because it makes Iran look strong in the broad sense, but because it is still one place where geography gives Tehran the ability to impose cost. A weakened regime can still hold a dangerous choke point. A fractured leadership can still threaten a corridor through which a huge share of global energy moves. That is why Tehran is unlikely to surrender it easily. Not because it is winning, because it is one of the few remaining tools that still affects everyone else's calculations. But that also reveals the danger of this phase. The more Iran depends on Hormuz, the clearer it becomes that its options are narrowing. It is leaning more heavily on disruption because the larger strategic model that sustained it for years is collapsing. That is not durable power. That is late-stage leverage. And late-stage leverage can still be very destructive. Step back and the pattern becomes unmistakable. Iran's delay strategy has failed. Its threshold strategy has failed. Its belief in endless diplomatic time has failed. Its confidence in buried infrastructure has failed. Its assumption that the leadership system could absorb any shock has failed. What remains is a still dangerous state whose old method of survival no longer works. That is why this moment matters more than a normal crisis update. We are not just watching another confrontation. We are watching the end of a strategic era for the Islamic Republic. The old game was simple: negotiate without settling, enrich without fully breaking out, pressure without final war, and use time itself as a weapon. That game is over. The question now is what replaces it: a narrower regime, a fractured regime, a regime forced into a smaller and more defensive shape, or a longer period of dangerous instability in which no one inside the system is fully able to make the concessions required to stop the unraveling. That is the question, now defining the next phase. The Islamic Republic is not gone yet, but the version of it that believed it could live forever in the gray zone between diplomacy and force, hiding behind mountains, enrichment, and time, is finished. And once that version dies, the Middle East does not return to what it was before. It enters a new chapter,